this essay in Mentacide was the single essay that I got the most response, in fact, particularly from parents in the African Center community. Called, yeah, me too, yeah, I understand, exactly. You know, you must have been writing this for my child, or, you know, what have you. And this was one of those essays like the discussion of Malcolm X, where I wrote it somewhat in a rage because I realized that something was going on with my daughter and a few older people who she was associated with. You assume in your community that everyone has a common conception of what it means to be African. They have a common idea of what the insanities are that Europeans bring. You have a common idea about how to raise our people. You have a common idea about what it means to be revolutionary, to re-Africanize, to nation build. You assume that there's a common sense of that. And in the Negro community, there is a common sense of that. In the European community, there is a common sense of that, with a variation here and there. But on the whole, we as African people have been blessed with an ancestor by the name of Nana John Henry Clark. John Henry Clark has been incredibly important in this institution, in this school, if you will, because he made a point about using the term priesthood. In reference to how we should surround our children and bring them up a particular way. John Henry Clark was talking about a priesthood in terms of the essence of the mind and spirit of our children, and that essence of our children's mind being groomed in such a way that it serves the community as it's supposed to, and they in turn get stuff back. So he said, and I have, quote, at least part of the explanation here, when he was talking about Africans, they did not, talking about traditional Africans, they did not do, and this is out of his Notes Toward an African World Revolution, Africans at the Crossroads, which is a must-read as far as I'm concerned. He looks at, and this is something we have our students do, Iniya has them write essays on important African revolutionary men and African revolutionary women, and one of the things that we ask of them or require of them is to find commonalities between those individuals in terms of looking for the kind of character that goes into being a superb revolutionary, as well as those things that were negative, so they'll know what not to imitate, what not to aid. Nana John Henry Clark says to us, they, traditional Africans, did not do as we do today, leave things to chance. They planned them. They came out of a society that we need to reproduce today in order to bring about our revolution. Our children should be picked out and trained for leadership from birth. You can watch how that child handles a fork, watch that child's ability to share with the group, watch that child's ability to protect the group and to accept the training that will make that child improve. We should spot leaders early and begin to train them. We should make a priesthood of this effort. I want to read that last part again because I think it is critical. It's very, very important to our thinking. If we're going to be African people, if we're going to be independent, if we're going to be solvent. Now, we have no designs or desires for anything but to be dependent black Anglo-Saxons, well, then there's not a problem. But if we plan on being something other than that, then we need to make that transformation in an intergenerational way, so that the children are trained, and their children are trained, and their children are trained. I remember this elder sister, and I know I've said this before, she said to me, if old black men would just start doing those things that they're supposed to be doing, then the young black men wouldn't have a question because they have the model that they need to tell them what they need to do. So obviously the problem is that the old black men aren't doing the things that they need to do, or at least most of them aren't. I know some, of course, who are. And we have to do that. We're not doing that. We're not taking the time. So many people assume that whatever institution their child is a part of or in, the product that comes out, which is their child, is going to be that child being the best that he or she is in whatever it is that they have talents in. But that's not necessarily true. And in fact, absolutely it's not true in most cases. They will go whatever direction they're told that will make them rich and famous or popular or what have you. and we have to look at it differently. There was another thing that made me write the lecture that is the foundation of this essay, and that was when we started this institution. About the third or fourth year, we had a number of students who were Morehouse students, at least four of these who were Morehouse students, and they had done the work. When they got to college or shortly thereafter, they went and they read the masters. They went and found and talked to those individuals who were renowned in African-centered thought and practice, and they listened to them and they asked them for advice, and they said, well, what do I need to read? And they went and read it, and they said, what do I need to study? And they went and studied it, and they asked, where do I need to go? And they went and said, what do I need to listen to? And they listened, and they spent 5 years studying who they are, what they're supposed to know, who they're supposed to be about. And then when they got finished with the 4 years, they became somewhat disgruntled because they logically expected, and I would have too, they logically expected the institutions to be in place where they could just be readily absorbed into those institutions and get to work without having to deal with heroes. Some folks listen and they expect because things are said in a certain way that certain things are already in place. And they miss the point where we're saying, no, these things need to be developed. So they're looking for something that they believe to already be there. I'm very angry with, well, number one, with myself in a way, because I didn't get on the bandwagon until I was older. I didn't start to realize what was going on and that I was African, if you will, until I was 30. Their anger understood. And I was very angry with myself because for a while. Now I've learned to not be so angry. Sometimes it'll kick back in, but most of the time I've learned not to be so angry with myself because I didn't read this book, and it came out in 1973, 2 years before I went in the military. And this guy who was, a major revolutionary figure, he died when I was in the military serving somebody else. But you can't be angry when you didn't know, and you absolutely didn't know. Now, once you learn and then you do stuff that works against it, well, then you can be angry with yourself. The group of individuals, or the other people I'm angry at, are those individuals who use the 60s and the 70s to line their pockets and to not build anything. Because a lot of those folks haven't built any schools. They haven't built any book publishing companies. They haven't built any books. They didn't build anything. They just collected in their money because they were charismatic and they could talk to people and make them excited about this. But they didn't build anything of substance. There's nothing there now that the children who are behind them can incorporate themselves to and build into something bigger or stronger. Or a model by which they can look at and say, okay, this is what I need to build from in this area if I want to become, or help my people to become powerful. Okay? Now, that's not, as I said before, that's not all. There's some people who have some beautiful models of schools. Nation House is premier in D.C. You got schools all the place, little schools all over the place. But there ought to be hundreds to thousands more. All the voices that we heard. I see so many people who gave up and or thought that everything was fine now, or who never were about the business of empowering African people. They were looking for a means of convincing Europeans that if they don't let them in, then this place might get torn down. So they were looking to be sub-integrated from the get. They were not looking for any nation building. So we have to be, well, I guess on that point we have to be careful of who we look at as a model and who we follow. But I think that that is for me, a deserved righteous anger, because they should have built something. I'm not talking about people like John Henry Clark. I'm not talking about